All right, good morning to everyone. Welcome back to another class, to another IT class. Now, when it comes to IT, um, it's a topic that you must understand. It's a topic that you must um, have a general understanding of because when we had the first class, I would have explained or help you guys to see how important information technology is. Everything we're doing is IT related. Even what we're doing right now, we're currently having a class, and it's all because of information technology. You're using a phone, you're using a computer, you're using the internet, and so on. So, what we're going to do this morning, before we head into our new topic, which is supposed to have been primary memory, we're going to go over briefly what we need to remember about the three chapters. So if you have not made any notes as yet, please take note of these main points that you should remember. Remembering these main points is what will help you to basically handle any of your future exam, any future tests, any future quizzes. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Only one person?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, could you please repeat?
What I said we're doing this morning, we're going through the three chapters that we already looked at. And we're taking note of the main points that you need to remember. And when you remember those main points, it will help you to basically handle any tests, any assignments, any homeworks that may come up in your future. Understood? Are you guys hearing me clearly? Or the Wi-Fi giving issue?
Yes, sir.
Us?
Sorry, hearing you.
Sir, you're breaking up.
Let me see if. Give me a second. Okay, it seems some persons are hearing me clearly and some persons are not. So, is it general? I'm being heard clearly. Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, once again, I said we're going to go over the main points that you should remember. Now, when it comes to information technology, what we're looking at is basically hardware and software for this term. We're looking at the hardware side of computers and we're looking at the software of computers. So, one of the main things you should remember is what is the definition of a computer. That's one of the main things you should remember. What is a computer? You should be able to define that. So we're not going to go through the content because we already did that. So you can make a note of that. That's one of the things you need to remember. What is a computer? The next thing you need to remember or to understand, it's how the IPOS cycle works. So what are the steps in the IPOS cycle? The steps include input, as you see at the top here. The steps include input, then processing, then output, and then storage. So the IPOS cycle has 4 steps, and that is how your computer functions. Now, some of you, when you did your group assignment, when I asked this question, you gave another type of cycle, which is basically the same cycle. I cannot remember the name of that cycle. Anybody remembers what they put? What was the name they put? It was information cycle or something of that sort. Now, I would have commented that that cycle is not that it is wrong. It is correct, but we're more focusing on the 4 steps. That's our main focus. Those 4 steps: inputting data, processing the data, outputting data or information, or basically results, and storing that data or information. So those are the main things you should remember so far. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go ahead. Now the next thing to remember is the components of the computer. The components of the computer has 2 categories: hardware and software, and that's what we mentioned earlier. For this term, we're focusing on what is hardware, what are the types of hardware, and what is software, and what are the types of software. Those are the components of the computer. That's another area you should remember. What are the components of the computer? So any computer you look at, any part of that computer is going to fall under one of these components. If you look at the keyboard, it's going to fall under hardware or software. If you're playing a game, it's going to fall under hardware or software. If you're drawing on your computer, if you're drawing on your phone, it's going to fall under one of these 2 categories: hardware or software. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Great. If you guys have any questions at any time or any comments, you can let me know. Now, when it comes to hardware, hardware is further broken down into categories. For hardware has 5 categories. And this is also why I gave you guys that diagram, because drawing that diagram can help you to also remember the main concepts that is important. So the hardware has 5 categories. The first is a central processing unit. That is the brain of the computer. And the CPU, the central processing unit, has 2 categories under it also. It can be broken down into 2 main parts: the control unit and the arithmetic and logic unit. So we have the CPU, and under the CPU we have the control unit and the arithmetic and logic unit. So that's the first category there. The second category is the input devices, and we actually already covered that in 1.2. So we can come to that just now. And the third category is the output devices, and we covered that last week. We finished off output devices last week. So if you notice, memory is our 4th category, and that's actually the next chapter that we will be looking at. What are the types of memory and so on. And then the last category of hardware is storage media. Please remember, you have to remember the difference between a storage media and a storage device. Media is what has the data. The media has the data. So like your flash drive, your memory card, your CD, those store the data. Those are the storage media. But the storage devices, they are the devices that transfers the data to the media or to the computer, either one. It transfers it back and forth from the computer to the media. So you have 5 categories here, and it's important for you to remember what are all of those categories of hardware. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Any questions
Yes,
or
sir.
comments so far? All right. So the next term that you should remember is a peripheral device. And if you notice, it falls right under the hardware topic. So when you think of peripheral device, think of also hardware devices. It's basically any device that is outside of the CPU. Any device that you connect to your computer, that is considered a peripheral device. Now, the last category of the computer is the software. You have to remember what is a software and what is the types of software. We have two types of software. We have system software and we have application software. Now, system software has two categories under it, or two types: the operating system and the utility software. And you need to remember what are examples of those. Examples of the operating system: Windows, Linux, Unix. Examples of the utility software: CC Cleaner, your antivirus, Avast, and so on. Backup software like maybe Recuva, and so on. So when it comes to the system software, the most important, not the most important, but the most dominant type of software is the operating system. So that is why when persons talk about the system software, they're mostly referring to the operating system. And not so much so the utility, because the utility is mostly helping the operating system. The operating system is what runs your computer, and the utility supports running the computer. So you can think of the operating system like the HM. The HM is running the school, and the DHM is like the utility software that is supporting the HM. She's controlling the students, guiding the HM, advising her, and all of that. Now, the other type of software is the application software. And application software, it basically refers to any software that does a specific task. So when you're playing a game, when you're working on a spreadsheet, when you're going into a browser, those are all application software. And then we have two terms here that you should remember. What is information technology and what is communications technology? IT is basically how you access, retrieve, store, manipulate, and present data and information. It basically deals with data and information, doing something with that data and information. Whereas communications technology is basically about telecommunications, how you're communicating that information and data, how you're transferring that data and information. So for example, you're going to use a phone, you're going to use the internet, you're going to use a computer, you're going to use a modem, you're going to use a fax machine. Those are all part of communications technology to help you transfer or communicate that data or information. So those are all the main points that you should remember from this chapter here. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So was that helpful, or did you guys remember all of that? No one? So it didn't help anyone? Or shouldn't go through the rest?
Yes, sir, it helped.
Alright. Well, hopefully it's at least helping one person. So the next chapter that we looked at is the second category of hardware, which is the input devices. Now, when it comes to input devices, it's important for you to remember what is an input device. It is basically a device that gets data into the computer. A device that gets data into the computer. Now, input devices have two types. That's another important thing to remember about input device. They have two types. You have manual input devices and direct data entry devices. Those are two types of input devices. Manual input devices and direct data entry devices. You have to remember how those devices function. How does a manual input device function? How does it get data into the computer? Well, you have to do so manually. It's in the name, manual input device. So you have to enter the data manually. You have to do something physically to get the data into the computer. And once you remember that manual input device means you have to do it manually, then logically you should be thinking that direct data entry device is the opposite. It's going to do it automatically. So the direct data entry device basically takes a group of data and automatically enters that data into the computer, instead of you manually typing one by one each of the data. So that is the difference there between the two. Now, the other thing to remember is what are examples of manual input devices. So we have quite a few examples that you guys need to remember and how they function. We have one, a keyboard. We have a keypad. We have a mouse. We have the document scanner. We have the microphone. We have the digitizer. We have the webcam. We have the graphics tablet. Graphics tablet there. For touch devices, we have a touch screen. We have the trackpad or the touchpad. For pointing devices, we have the light pen. And we have the stylus. Remote control devices, any remote basically. We have biometric systems, anything that scans a part of your body. Those are all examples of manual input devices. Keyboard, keypad, mouse. Remember what are the types of mouse? You have the mechanical mouse, you have the optical mouse, and you have the cordless mouse. I remember the mechanical mouse is the one with the ball. Optical mouse, when you hear the word optical, think of light. So that is the mouse with the light. And that's basically the one we use the most today. Remember, for keyboards, we have the normal keyboard that you have on your computer. And then we also have special keyboards which are designed differently from the regular keyboards. They're basically buttons doing something different. Document scanner, microphone, digitizer, graphics tablets, touch devices, remotes, and so on, biometric systems. So those are all examples of manual input devices. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the last category, or the second category, because remember there's only two types of input device, is the direct data entry device. This transfers data automatically, a group of data automatically. So what are some examples? We have the barcode reader, which scans a barcode and inputs all the information that is in the barcode. For example, it's going to transfer the country of origin, the manufacturer, the item code, and so on. All of that information goes in automatically. We have the smart card, which is used for credit cards, store cards, debit cards. And remember, there is the smart card, and then there is the magnetic swipe card. Two different cards. The magnetic swipe card has a black bar on it. Magnetic swipe card has a black bar on it. So the same card that you would get for Bounty, DSL, the bank cards, they would have magnetic black bar on it. Whereas the smart card would have a chip on it. Something like your SIM card, like what you're seeing on the screen right now. They would use a gold contact strip or gold contacts to transfer the data. So the next direct data entry device is the optical mark recognition, the OMR. What can help you to remember? Think of that word there, mark. What is it looking for? It is looking for a mark, some sort of mark. It could be a circle, it could be an X, it could be a shade, it could be a bar. Whatever type of mark, it's going to look for that mark and scan it. Optical character recognition, OCR. This is going to be looking for characters. So when you write something or when you type a document and you don't have the original, you could scan it and it's going to transfer all of that data into software so that you can edit the information. Not just scan it and print it, but be able to edit it also, to make any changes to it. And it is also used with a turnaround document. So one side would have an OCR, whereby you put in information, and the other side might have a OMR, where you make marks or so on the document. The next type of direct data entry device is the magnetic ink character recognition, MICR. This is the magnetic inks that are on a check. They're used to transfer information. If you can see at the top here, it transfers the check number, the branch number, account number, transaction code, and so on into the system automatically. So you have to remember how these devices function from each other, how they transfer their data. And I think the last direct data entry device is the sensors. We have different types of sensors. We have music sensors, that's called MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. And we also have sensors for weather forecasting, sensors for temperature, wind speed, direction. There's one for detection of intrusion, automatic doors opening, burglar alarm systems. Those all use sensors to track a person. So input the data and make a decision with that data. So we have the table here that summarizes everything basically. What the device does, how it functions, what category it falls under, and what is the advantages and what is the disadvantage of that device. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Alright,
Yes, sir.
that's it for chapter 1.2. So remember, the main things to remember here is what is an input device, what are the two types of input device, and what are the examples that fall under those types. So the next chapter that we had considered, or the last chapter we had considered, is the output devices. So you have to remember, what is an output device? Basically get data or information out of the computer. And what are the types of outputs? We have soft copy output and hard copy output. Please remember that. Just like how your input device has two types, your output devices fall under two categories or two types. They can either be a soft copy output or a hard copy output. So we have the examples right here. Anything that is soft copy, it is not permanent, it's temporary. So your computer monitor, where you see it on the screen, on your computer, on your phone, any type of display is temporary. Because if you lose power, you won't be able to see anything anymore. Any music you're playing, any audio, if you lose power, you cannot hear it anymore. So it is temporary. Electrical signals, anything that depends upon electricity is going to be temporary. Now, hard copy is something that is permanent. And the main example, or some persons would say the only example, is when you print something, because then you have something physical. So it doesn't matter if your computer is on, if it is off, if your computer burn up. Once you have that printed copy, you have a permanent output there. So those are the two types of output we have there. Soft copy output and hard copy output. Now, under the soft copy, we have display devices as examples. So what are some examples of soft copy output? For displays, we have screen or monitor. On laptops, mobile devices, you have your television, you have smart boards, touch sensitive plastic boards, projectors, tablets, and so on. Once it has a display, that is a soft copy output. You have to remember what are the types of displays. The most common example is the LCD, liquid crystal display, and the LED, light emitting diode display. Those are the two common types. You have to remember what is a pixel. A pixel is the smallest element on the screen, that red, green, and blue, that gives you that color on the screen, RGB. The combination of those colors give you your image. And the more pixels we have, which falls under the features of the computer screen, the more pixels we have, the greater the resolution. So the more pixels, the clearer and more detailed your graphics will be, or the higher your resolution will be. So that is why when you are looking at a display that has high quality, you do not really see the pixels because the pixels are so small. So what are the features of a display or a computer screen that you should remember? You should remember the size. How do you measure the size? You measure it diagonally from top left to bottom right, or top right to bottom left. We just spoke about the resolution, the color, how much color a display can output basically. 16 different colors, 64 different colors, thousands of different colors, millions of different colors. And then the cursor and the pointer of the screen, how you navigate the screen, and how do you scroll that screen. You have the scroll bar, you have the cursors, you have the pointers, and so on. Those are all features of a display. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
So the next type of device that we covered is the hard copy device, the printing devices. Those are the hard copy devices. Printers have two types also. So just like how your output device has two types, your input device has two types, your printer has two types also. There is the impact printer, which touches the paper or impacts the paper, and the non-impact printer, which does not make any contact with the paper. So remember, I told you guys already, a lot of the things in IT, you can tell based on the name. Impact, it's making contact with the paper. Non-impact, there's no contact with the paper. So, impact printers, as I explained, make contact. And the one example that we have is the dot matrix printer. This makes a pattern using a ribbon that uses a needle that strikes through that ribbon and makes a pattern on the paper. For non-impact printers, we have the inkjet printer, which should be the most common printers that you guys should know about. Then we have the laser printer, which uses lasers. The inkjet printer, it uses liquid ink. Some laser printers actually use liquid ink, but they mostly use a powder. Laser printers use a powder called toner, but some of them can use liquid ink, or I'll verify that. Don't quote me on that. I think a majority of them are using that toner. I'll verify if some are using that liquid ink. But just note that for now, most of them are using the toner. The laser printers are using the toner. The thermal printer, that is the third example of the non-impact printer, and it uses heat to make its printing. It uses heat. So we also have the 3D printer, which makes 3D models. We have the plotter, and it's important to remember what are the types of plotters. We have the flatbed plotter, which is a flat surface, and the pens move on top of that flat surface and prints or draws the image. We have the drum plotter, as you see at the bottom here. Paper rolls on the drum. And then we have the pinch roller plotter, which is a combination of the flatbed and the drum plotter. So that is basically all of the hard copy output devices, all of the printers. Impact printers, dot matrix, non-impact printers, inkjet, laser printer, thermal printer, and we also have 3D printers and plotters. Now the other type of soft copy output is the audio devices. They make soft copy output. So for example, your speaker, they make soft copy outputs. Now, when it comes to the speaker or audio devices, take note of the difference between the terms. What is a headphone? What is an earphone? And what is an earbud? A headphone goes over your ear, or goes over your head. An earphone or earbud goes inside of your ear. So the headphone goes over the ear or over the head, and the earphone or the earbud goes into the ear. And then we also have a headset, which is basically a headphone with a microphone. Right, and that is basically the end of the revision. Those are the main points that you guys should remember for everything that we have covered so far. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, is there anyone with any questions, any comments? We can take some questions. Anything at all from any one of the chapters that we covered so far? Or any comments? Or any thoughts? Anything you want to clarify? Nothing? All right. So here's a question to you guys. Are you guys learning so far?
Yes, sir.
Seems one person is learning. What about the rest?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys learning?
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes.
is the method of teaching effective, or is there something that could be done to basically improve so that you guys could learn better? Or is it good enough?
Sir is good enough.
So any suggestions as to how we can make it better, or we can't make it better? It's already at the best. Any suggestions? Other than coming into school?
No, sir.
No suggestions? Alright. Alright, I don't want to start the other chapter because we're going to run out of time. And I don't want to be rushing through. But it's a small chapter though. Do you guys want to do it now, or you want to do it next week?
Next class, sir.
Next class?
Yeah.
Right. Alright, so I guess if you guys have an understanding of all the main points that you should remember for everything we covered so far, for all 3 chapters, then we can close off here for today. So if you guys don't have any questions on anything we looked at today, if you don't have any comments, we're going to end class here for today, so enjoy the rest of your day. Please,
Bye, sir.
goodbye. Please ensure you study